I spent the last 3 consecutive exhausting weeks relentlessly, obsessively reading completely through hundreds of highly, incredibly obscure online digital automotive forum internet posts and personally, directly, formally interviewing long-term, high exact mileage owners entirely to find completely out exactly, precisely what specific annoying details drive them absolutely, totally crazy. Automotive journalists absolutely only ever actively, heavily test drive brand, entirely new perfect cars strictly for a few incredibly brief short days, entirely on perfect smooth closed roads, but real, actual daily owners actually live completely intimately exactly what these heavy machines entirely for many years, completely through freezing harsh winters and boiling hot summers. Let us heavily, highly, actively start directly, completely with the absolute totally most universal, heavily and incredibly loudly publicly voiced specific complaint completely across the entire massive global owner driving community, specifically the absolute completely brutal harshness exactly of the hard interior cabin plastics. While the main plastic dashboard internal structure and the large wide door side panels are undeniably completely incredibly totally durable, heavily, and will highly probably easily physically survive a direct, completely nuclear explosive blast, absolutely without physically cracking, they are completely, totally hard, incredibly hollow, and utterly, completely, totally unforgiving directly to the gentle human physical touch. If you highly, actively have the extremely, incredibly common, specific driving physical habit exactly of heavily, actively rest in your left physical bone knee, aggressively, heavily, directly against the hard, plastic, rigid door side panel grab handle, specifically, exactly, while actively driving physically on massive, long, straight highway road trips, you will inevitably, highly, actively develop a severe, incredibly deep bone joint ache. Another massive, complete, total point exactly of intense, heavy contention heavily, directly, actively involves the physical acoustic sound insulation precisely, specifically, exactly regarding the highly, totally annoying loud road and hollow tire noise heavily, rapidly, actively creeping directly, entirely into the passenger cabin exactly at high, incredibly fast highway cruising vehicle speeds. While the thick front engine metal bay dividing firewall is very totally decently physically isolated, actively, heavily keeping the loud diesel engine clatter completely safely quiet, the massive wide metal floor metal pans and the incredibly thin cheap plastic wheel arch liners severely, totally, heavily lack thick, heavy, highly expensive sound completely deadening acoustic foam thick padding. Speaking specifically, actively, exactly of the physical suspension, owners highly frequently loudly report exactly that while it is highly completely great exactly at effectively actively absorbing massive deep wide city road potholes, it can physically completely heavily feel slightly floaty entirely and completely physically disconnected strictly when actively driving physically at very high, incredibly fast illegal speeds. The soft, long dampening travel that completely actually makes it exactly a incredibly great soft city commuter car absolutely completely means highly that crosswinds actively can heavily physically aggressively push the lightweight metal chassis physically completely around, actively requiring incredibly constant, tiny heavy steering wheel corrections strictly to actively keep it completely safely entirely in the exact dead center precisely of the highway lane. Finally, the exterior paint application quality, specifically precisely the clear liquid coat application hardening process exactly has physically been a highly incredibly frequent massive subject exactly of massive incredibly long-term structural complaints entirely, especially specifically heavily on the darker deep paint colors exactly like navy deep blue or dark black.